Lesson 85, Event Macros. Well, in this lesson, we're going to take a look at some amazing tiny little macros that get run automatically every time a cell is changed. We'll also take a look at the VBA window. Well, I'm going to record a quick macro here. We'll stop recording. And I want to go take a look in Visual Basic. If you've never been in Visual Basic before, you want to choose View and Project Explorer, so that way you see this window along the left-hand side. You'll see a list of all the open workbooks, including some add-in workbooks, for example, Personal XLS or the XY Chart Labeler. But we'll open the Modules tab and double-click on Module, and we'll see the code that was recorded by the macro recorder. In fact, we can actually watch this code being created as we record the macro. Let me arrange the Excel window. And move it so we can see both the Excel window and the macro recorder. If I would turn on the macro recorder and start to type some things, you can see the macro recorder actually writing the code directly as we do the actions. Here I'll type Control B to make that bold, and it did selection.font.bold equals true. It's pretty wild to understand that exactly as you do things, the macro recorder is going through and writing the code as you do each action. Well, let me stop recording. And we'll go back to full screen. So most of the macros that we create will be created here in new modules. But the macros that we're going to talk about in this particular lesson are not in a typical module. They are actually attached right to the sheet. I'm going to double click on the sheet, and now we're looking at the code window for that worksheet, or if I would double click on this workbook, the code window for this workbook. In these cases, we're interested in the top two drop-downs. We choose Worksheet from the left drop-down, and then in the right drop-down, these are a list of all the events that we're allowed to capture and run a macro for. So for example, every time there's a selection change, or every time they update a pivot table, every time they follow a hyperlink. But in this lesson, I want to talk about the change macro. When I choose change, you'll see that Microsoft starts to write a macro for me and even gives me a variable called target. Okay, let's go back and look at Excel. I have a worksheet here where I enter names in column B, and when I enter the name in column B, I want to log the time that I entered that name in column C. But I just want this to happen automatically. Back in VBA, in my private sub worksheet change, I'm going to check to see if the value that I entered was in column B. If target.column equals 2, then I basically want to go to the cell immediately to the right of target. I'll use the offset function and say I want to go 0 rows down, but 1 column over, dot value equals time. And that's it. Just a tiny little 3-line macro, but watch what happens when I switch back to Excel. If I enter a name here, Excel, in a flash, adds the time to column C. Right down the list. You could have all kinds of tiny little macros that would go through and maybe log a time or something. When I'm doing classes for auditors, in the auditing world now with Sarbanes-Oxley, there are certain worksheets which are highly controlled, and we actually wrote a little macro that every time that someone changes any cell, that date, time, username, the cell, and the new value is logged to a hidden worksheet. And it all happens in a flash no one ever realizes that it's happening. We'll switch back to VBA, and we'll take a look at what we can do in this workbook. When we choose Workbook from the left drop-down, then we have a series of events that we can capture in the right drop-down. For example, the open macro is the default one. We can run a macro every time the workbook opens, but every time they activate a sheet, even every time before they double-click or before they right-click, we can capture that event and do something. Let's do a quick macro here for before print. Maybe we want to have the username in the footer. There's a variable called application.username. There you go. So now every time that we're about to print this document, the macro will run and it will record the name of the person who is printing the document right in the footer. Username is not something that is generally available in the headers and footers. You can imagine a variety of uses for these event macros. They're very, very powerful. And in the booklet that came with this DVD, I'll give you several examples of event handlers that you can copy right into your project. Well, I hope you found that helpful, and thanks for watching.
Looking to advance your career by acquiring new skills? Tired of expensive off-site training programs? Wish you could learn from the best instructors in the industry? Look no further than Live Lessons. Self-paced, personal video instruction by the world's leading technology publishers. Each live lesson comes with a DVD featuring 3 to 4 hours of instructor-led classroom training, sample program code that allows you to work along with your personal instructor, and an example-rich study guide. Live lessons allow you to watch the entire course from start to finish, or navigate directly to any of the individual lessons. You'll literally watch over the shoulder of your instructor as he shows you how to build state-of-the-art applications. Live Lessons, the power of the world's leading technology experts at your fingertips. To learn more, visit mylivelessons.com today.